The African National Congress is today celebrating 109 years since its formation. Now, the celebrations will be held virtually for the first time due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The ANC President, Cyril Ramaphosa, will address members on the party's plans for the upcoming year at 7 o'clock tonight. We'll be bringing that live to you right here on Newzroom Afrika, channel 405. Now, for more on what we can expect from the January 8 statement, we're now joined by the first Deputy Secretary of the SACP, Solly Mapaila. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Mapaila, and thank you very much for your time today. Now, we do believe that you're actually coming from a funeral. You've literally just gotten into your car coming from a funeral of the late comrade Makoko. If you could just give us a bit of details around the funeral that you are just from, and also comrade Makoko.
Yeah, thank you very much. Today is a special day, the birthday of our allied African National Congress. And the family of Comrade Kapeng Makoko chose to bury him on this day. Kapeng Makoko was one of our staunch liberation warriors who participated in COSAS. He joined COSAS in 1981 in Togoza at Togotaba High School, and later on was expelled, and he went to Katlehong High School, where he became the president of the SRC. And he then participated in the establishment of the then Teachers Workers Union, because at the time that he came to complete his matric, he had already taught at several schools after he acquired what they call junior certificate. He was one of our best cadres who then participated in the underground, and later on in Umkhonto weSizwe under the Young Lions detachment. He belonged to the Johannesburg Nkosi detachment, unit of Umkhonto weSizwe, and he also participated at the regional high command of Umkhonto weSizwe in the East Rand, together with some of comrades known as who were quite hectic in engaging the apartheid regime, like Jackie Matsiu, Comrade Pepsi Mahlangu, Comrade Keifas Nyoka, and several others. And others, those three that I've mentioned have passed on. But Comrade Elijah Maseko is still alive. Was one of those comrades who participated with them in the MK unit in the East Rand. So he was one of our finest comrades. We characterize him today as the immortal revolutionary.
And do we know what the cause of his passing has been?
Well, Comrade Makoko was not well for some time. He has been in and out of hospital. And unfortunately, with the deterioration of our health care system, particularly because of the pandemic, or given the pressures of the COVID-19 pandemic, he was released from hospital a couple of days just before New Year because of increased admissions of COVID-19 patients, which is quite unacceptable. But nonetheless, they indicated that he was better off than some of the patients that were arriving. So he went back home, and on the 1st of January this year, he passed on. It's quite sad, and I think we dedicated our message to him today to strengthen the healthcare system in our country so that it's able to respond to the needs of the people and not allow the private sector to benefit on behalf of the public sector, and yet it's unable to take full responsibility when we are faced with situations like what we have today, as we have a COVID-19 pandemic in the country. So that's how he was in and out of hospital quite recently. And ultimately, the hospital just couldn't admit him. And that's how he then passed on the 1st of January.
We send our deepest condolences to yourself, to the party, as well as Mr. Makoko's family. And what you're describing, Mr. Mapaila, is really just the reality of so many South Africans that they're finding themselves in now. And the might and the strength and the relevance and importance of the January 8 statement perhaps has not been more important than it is right now. What do you hope that the president will be focusing on today when he does his address at 7 p.m.?
We hope that the president, through representing the ANC National Executive, will respond to the challenges of the pandemic to the country comprehensively, including the issue of the vaccine against COVID-19, and how to make that vaccine available to our people, as well as to the working class across the world, because we have now seen that imperialism is beginning to commodify medicine like this kind of vaccine in the midst of international pandemic. So we feel that the January 8th statement should speak directly to this kind of matters, as well as how to strengthen our healthcare facilities and system to respond to these challenges, including building public and state sector capacity to develop vaccines of our own, and not only against COVID-19, but priority being on COVID-19, but many other pandemics, viruses that may come, as well as ensuring that in the midst of that, we are able to rebuild a public sector economy that should be able to respond to the current challenges that we face as a country. We are not the only ones who are facing this crisis. The world is facing the same crisis, and we've seen how the public sectors have played a major role. So the public sector should play a role not only to rescue business, but to rescue the public as a whole. That is why it is high time that the public sector role in the economy is strengthened, and we expect that kind of an emphasis from the January 8th statement.
Looking at the state of the African National Congress right now, what do you believe are the impediments to actually having a united party that can then focus on the country's most urgent needs, as opposed to focusing on internal factionism and internal squabbles?
This is disturbing us. That's why even in our message to the ANC, we have called for the ANC to embrace the weapon of unity and discipline and integrity, so that when they have that, they can then rebuild the leadership role that we've always enjoyed amongst our people because of the value system that we followed as a movement. So unity becomes much more important, but it's not unity for its own sake. It's unity of principle. It's not unity with corruption. It's unity with ethical conduct, with our own values. That's the program that unites all of our people, and therefore they accord us the leadership possibility and space to lead our society. So this is the most important thing that is facing the ANC today, to the ability to function united as an organization, also mobilizing the allied forces with the ANC and the mass democratic movement, so that we are able to take forward our revolution. And particularly our people are looking at us today because of the pandemic and economic crisis. They are looking at the leadership of the ANC to provide answers, and they are tired of people coming out making an end accusations, internal problems, rather than focusing on challenges facing the people who have mandated them to lead them.
Mr. Mapaila, you spoke there about the importance of unity within the African National Congress, and we have heard the president of the ANC and the president of the country also highlighting unity as one of the key concerns for the party. But you've mentioned now that it's not just about having unity for the sake of unity, but having unity, as you say, of principle. What are your thoughts regarding the way that the African National Congress has dealt, for example, with the issue of Secretary General Ace Magashule?
Well, the main thing is that they've used existing frameworks within the ANC, but we can say as the party that that framework that they've used is quite weak, but perhaps that's what they have. And a revolutionary movement such as the ANC need to be ahead of times, need to lead society even by institutional capacity and creating alternatives and systems that are better, that the people can look up to them. And I think that the current framework, the way it's used, is quite inadequate. But we've had discussions with the ANC on this, and of course, as an independent organization, they have a duty to use their own framework, their own policies, as well as their own resolutions, which we cannot impose on, but we can share the general principles that makes us united, makes us to focus on the needs of our people, which is the value system of our movement, of integrity, of solidarity, empathy, and all of that. So in the absence of that, it becomes difficult to endorse or not endorse certain procedures that the organization follows.
What role do you, as the SACP, still play within the matrix of a collaboration and partnership with the African National Congress? What do you believe are the touch points that still exist between the Communist Party and the African National Congress?
Well, the main issues now are issues relating to the economy and, of course, accountability, both within the alliance as well as in public. Because, for instance, some of those who are public representatives, as you know, we are the leading liberation movement entrusted with political power by our people, and we do so in the name of the ANC. But we have no ability to recall individuals in the ANC who bridges our discipline as a movement broadly. And it is that has created difficulties. But we're working on that. As you know, in the ANC NGC document, there's a discussion document on the reconfiguration of the alliance. That discussion document takes into account the internal debate within the alliance started by the Communist Party about issues of accountability for strategic orientation and strategic focus of our movement, and as well as how to deal with certain problems like this issue of lack of accountability. You have a situation where, for instance, a public representative who goes into office in the name of the ANC, if he or she misbehaves, we have no ability to recall that particular person as components of the alliance except the ANC. And if one faction in the ANC, for instance, feels that that person must remain, they do so. And that's why this question of reconfiguration of the alliance becomes more important.
Do you, as the South African Communist Party, actually have your own identity right now, your own independent strength and your own independent a source of being separate from the African National Congress? Do you think that this reconfiguration of the alliance is actually going to be beneficial to you at all?
Yeah, of course. I mean, part of the reason why the ANC is now discussing this is because we put it on the table as components of the alliance. And therefore, we have retained our identity, and we're a strong organization. We run our campaigns. In fact, we run more campaigns than the ANC as a Communist Party, in fact, than even all components of the alliance combined, or even all political parties in this country combined. So we're a campaigning organization, and we've been known for that, and we've grown in strength because largely of our campaigning ability. But that doesn't take away the fact that we are in alliance with the African National Congress, and we've reached certain agreements and even strategic input. For instance, we rolled out a campaign on the national health insurance that is now part of government. When people are talking about it now, they don't say the people who campaigned for this program were the Communist Party. So it is that kind of a thing that is important. We accord the ANC the respect and the credibility to lead on policies that we agree, but we continue to play our role, particularly at policy level.
All right, well, thank you very much for your insight and your views this afternoon. That's the first Deputy Secretary of the South African Communist Party, Mr. Solly Mapaila. Do stay with us when we return. More of your day's leading stories. We are still keeping an eye on the State Capital Commission of Inquiry. And at 2 p.m. this afternoon, a conversation with Jesse Duarte, who will be telling us what to expect from the presentation that will be given by the President of the African National Congress later on tonight at 7 p.m. as the party marks its 109th birthday.